Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today is a pretty big one because I'm joined with Jess McLeod and Eva Tavares, and this is after a rebrand, and Noa is here too. This is her first time doing an interview with me. So I'm really excited because today we're going to be talking a lot about A Little Vacation, which is Jess and Eva's short film that is all self-produced and self-directed. And I know for me and Noa, it had a pretty big meaning to it. We both really enjoyed it. So I'm so excited to introduce them. Here they are. So this process of creating A Little Vacation, or before we even get into that, can you kind of give the audience who isn't familiar with it a little bit of like synopsis?
100%. So A Little Vacation is based on a real event that Jess experienced in a psych ward. And we follow Jess, the character Jess, separate from Jess. The character, well, yeah, it's a fine line. But Jess is a young woman who attempts suicide, and trigger warning, attempts suicide and ends up in a psych ward, and we kind of follow her journey within the ward and then leaving the ward and the kind of joy and grief that comes up in that time. Good job. Thank you. That's good.
Yeah, I feel like that is a really good description. I mean, Noa watched this film recently. I saw it last November. And I think, like we were saying, both of us, it was such a profound film. And it's only around 15 minutes, but there's so much packed into there. So how did you start getting ready to create this film? And like, what was that process like?
Okay. So we were actually in Toronto. Jess was doing pickup shots for One of Us is Lying, the NBC show, and I had come with them because it was a time that I had off, and we wanted to keep hanging out. We had just moved in together.
I had just been gone for whatever it was, like 5 months.
Yeah.
And I was like, I miss you.
So we went and had a fun time. Well, you were working very, very hard.
I had a fun time in the 2 hours between when I woke up and then left for night shoots.
Yeah, it was poor thing was doing the most. Anyways, so but in our travels when we were out there, we kind of were talking about applying to a competition called Crazy Eights, and we knew we wanted to work together on something. We just didn't know what. And Jess was like, I think I have this story that I think might be good. I've thought about doing something with it for a while, but I just haven't done it. And then we started talking about it, and I immediately started having ideas, and then we started making some notes, and then we committed to applying for this competition. We went through this whole pitching process. We developed the story together. Obviously, like, it's Jess's real story, but kind of like formulating it for the film. We got pretty far in that competition, but we didn't end up making it, which ended up being a gift in disguise, because then when we decided to just make it on our own, we didn't have to adhere to any kind of rules or regulations that the competition was kind of enforcing. And so we wrote it together. It's really interesting because now we collaborate all the time, and we bounce ideas off each other all the time, and it's very cool to kind of see how our creative partnership has grown and changed. Because writing the script was super fun, but like we were kind of developing the ways in which we work best together.
Yeah.
And now we know that, like, I give you the script, you work on it, you give me the script, I work on it, as opposed to sitting together and like putting our heads together. You kind of have to have the space to formulate your thoughts and present them to the creative partner. And then producing it was an undertaking, to say the least.
Yeah.
But we look back at the filming of the short as like some of the best days ever.
Yes, certainly the 3 days of shooting were like so great, and then everything leading up to it and post was extremely stressful.
Yes,
but those 3 days were
amazing,
gorgeous and beautiful.
Which it's typical for film. Pre and post production makes you want to tear your hair out, but Very worth it. Very worth it because of meeting people like yourselves who identify with it so intimately. And now that it's played, actually, never played now. Might be a bit more than that. It's played now all over the world, which is very, very cool. And hearing and seeing messages and meeting people who are like, you saw something or you told a story that maybe hasn't been told in that way before, and you depicted a psych ward in a way that hasn't been done before, and things like that. Feels very purposeful.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, this was an independent film, so that was a lot to take on. And I know you're still raising money for it, which I can only imagine how much of not only your time, but your own funds had to go into this. So, what was it like creating an independent film? How did that differ from doing something that wasn't your own?
Oh gosh, Jess?
I like it better. I like independent films better. I will, yeah, all of my best experiences on set have been on independent films, or like smaller sort of things, even if it's not totally independent. Like, I just feel like I like the vibe better. It's just always more collaborative, and like you feel a little bit more agency, I guess, over the story. I mean, especially this, obviously, because like literally we wrote it, but like yeah, it's just like it's nice to have like a little bit more creative control in those types of situations. Even when you don't write it, I find like independent film is very, everyone's just trying to make the best thing that they can make, and there's not really any like overreach. So there's nobody you have to like approve things with. It's just kind of like, is this the best thing for the scene? Is this the best thing for the character? Let's just do it, which I think is really good. Art first, art forward. Which is nice. But then also expensive. Also expensive to like treat everybody the way that we should treat them, which is like, you know, feed them really well and like pay them as much as we can physically manage to, and like make sure that their time is valued and they feel supported, and like all of the things that they're volunteering and like giving of themselves is rewarded in some way. But yeah, I mean, it's just, there's trade-offs, right? Like if you're not getting funding from like a huge corporation, that gives you so much creative freedom, but then it also means that you have to
answer to somebody.
Which is my bank account.
Yes. And a lot of people donated their time or took a steep pay cut to be on that set, which was very humbling. And it's kind of the way that indie film gets made, is that people are like, you tell them a story and you see if they identify with it, and see if they are moved enough to use their time for that. And that in itself is like one of the most touching parts of making film independently, especially like specifically on this film. A good chunk of our crew and cast had personal, intimate connection to the narrative. And that was something that we were very conscious of, and we created a set where it was safe for them to be exposed to that storyline over and over and over again. We had a medical consultant, we had an intimacy coordinator, and then we also had a grief counselor who was on set the entire time. Crew signed paperwork before we started filming, and if they felt at any point that they needed to step away, having witnessed whatever scene in the short that made them feel some kind of way, they were given permission to leave and go in and talk to a professional and make sure that that didn't spiral out into anything else. What was interesting about that is, you know, film in general, the energy on set is that of like almost militant. Like it's like very high stakes. Like if we don't get, like, I'm just thinking about like a Christmas movie or something, like if this Christmas ornament doesn't shine at this blah blah blah, then the shot's toast, we're done, and everyone needs to focus and stop talking and blah blah blah. It can be very, very high tension. And so for a crew to hear from production, hey, you can step away at any point if you need to take care of yourself, that's like an outlandish thought. And it's interesting, I actually had a chat with one of our camera assistants after we wrapped, and he was like, it's interesting. I felt the need to go and speak to that counselor a couple times, and I was like, well, did you? He said, I didn't, because it was instilled in me from previous sets that wasn't okay. But just the idea that there was someone there to look out for me if I needed it was maybe enough for me to not feel so lost or feeling upset or anything like that, if that makes sense. But yeah, I feel like that's the next step forward for sets, is like not only protecting actors with intimacy coordinators, but also clocking how witnessing these potentially high anxiety, high stress, high drama scenes affects a crew, because they're just as much a person as the actor is, and not only are they witnessing it once, they're witnessing it however many times it takes to get out of that scene. And that is something to take into consideration, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think it's great that you're taking what you wish you always had on sets and making that available for others. I think that's so important. And I mean, going to work on this project with your good friend, that must have been really rewarding in a way. I mean, I talked to Jess about this and when I first interviewed them, but it was funny because my first feature script that I wrote was on mental health, and I wrote it with my friend Eva. So I always found that so funny. Yeah. I wrote it with my friend Eva. So I always found that connection, but I think it's so great when you can work alongside someone who's so meaningful for you. And I think that also really helped a little vacation kind of not, I don't want to say shine a little brighter because it completely did that on its own, but just have like that personal touch to it.
Yeah. No, I think that's true.
Yeah.
For sure. I feel like everyone could feel that too. Like we were like, ultimately, obviously, there was like many stressful moments that we had in pre-production. Yeah. There were many things that we like disagreed on. And there were many things that we struggled with, and like that's normal and natural. And if that didn't happen, it would mean that neither of us really cared. Yeah. So like it's good that those things happen. Yeah. But I feel like we both like, and we didn't even talk about it, but like it's just kind of the way that we are. I feel like when we went to set, it was like unconditional support and unconditional like openness to the other person's like needs, and like validating them and being like, we're here together. And like I feel like that energy really extended out, which I think it always does. Like whatever energy is at the top is gonna happen at the bottom. Like it's always gonna happen. So I feel like that was absolutely, that made the film better, or at least the process of working on it. Yeah, at the very least. Yeah, for 100%. Sure.
What's interesting now too is we're working together in different capacities now. Whereas Jess also just first AD'd for a short that I produced, and they're an amazing first AD, by the way. And they're gonna first AD for me again in a week. But it's just like I am so proud of us for the way in which that our relationship, like, I think people kind of underestimate friendships in the way that, like, compared to romantic relationships, but like my relationship with Jess is just as layered and complex as any other romantic relationship, and the way in which we've navigated the way in which we relate to each other and work together and solve disagreements or work through differences is like, I'm just really proud of us. Like every time we have one of those, and then we're like, we work through it in a way that's like efficient, caring, and just like succinct. I just feel like I'm like, go us.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the crew was so important, but also the cast and those who acted in the film was really important. So Noah, do you want to kind of lead our conversation on casting?
Sure. Also, I'll just mention about what you both just talked about. I'm in Montreal, so we have so we have CEGEP here, which is like in between high school and university. I did 2 years of cinema, a program there, and then I did 1 year of a university program. But like that's exactly where I met two of my closest friends that I've worked on like every film project together with. And I feel like I've never spent so much time with two people before. Yeah. So now I know exactly how they work and how I work and how we balance each other. And I feel like, and I've also worked on projects that they weren't a part of, and it just feels completely different working without them. But yeah. So when when we've been doing our films, casting is super important. Can you talk about the process of finding your cast for this film?
You start.
Okay. Well, it was very clear that Jess had to be Jess. There was a point in time where Jess was like, maybe we should cast somebody else, because there was a lot of scheduling conflicts to try to make it work with Jess's schedule, with one of us flying and some other stuff, and there was a lot going on.
There was another project that I was really hopeful to do that I didn't end up getting to do, not because of this, but because of one of us was lying, and it was like all of these three things were happening at the same time. At the point where I was just like, well, should I can it just be somebody else? And it was like, no.
No, it cannot. So that was obvious. The role of Boy with Tail was we were so specific about what we were wanting for that, and we auditioned a few people. Jess has a really good relationship with a few casting directors in town, so we reached out to them and kind of like tapped them for some of the people that they really love. And yeah, we did a few rounds of callbacks for everyone pretty much. There were a couple offers, but yeah, and then we got them in an audition room, and I gave them some notes, and callbacks are so interesting. Like we really love callbacks because it's like you really see where the actor's at when you start to throw them different ideas, and how quickly they can integrate them, and how and it's such a vulnerable thing to be an actor receiving notes, because your ego wants to come up and say like, hey, but I like the way I did it. And my thing is always like, I also like the way you did it. I'm just also interested in seeing it a different way. So, not attaching value to performance as much as we can, but just saying like, but what if we just did it differently? So that, we kind of have to, I have taught all my, I have a couple of like younger folks in my life who I am kind of mentoring to become directors. I always tell them, use the fluff punch method. So you start with something positive about what they did, like, oh my gosh, I really love this moment where you did that. That was really affecting. And then the punch coming second, being like, okay, so and then after that part that I really loved, what if we just did this other part like a little bit differently? And then you kind of sidestep any kind of ego flare up and get to the core of who the actor is. And it's super natural. Like, I think also because both of us are actors as well as creatives, we can kind of be more empathetic and conscious of how to discuss things with people, so that you are able to provide a supportive place for them and also get the best quote unquote end goal product. I hate the word product, but like,
just get a good read.
Get a good read.
Nice little read. Yeah.
That's really good advice, especially that method. I'm definitely gonna tell it to my friends, and hopefully we'll use that. That seems, I don't know, I feel like everyone would be more receptive to that than just criticism right off the bat.
Good for today life too, honestly.
It's good for literally everyone. I feel like actors obviously, like, I'll speak for myself, but I feel like a lot of us, like, we just want to be told that we're doing a good job.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But kind of everybody just wants to be told that they're doing a good job. Like, I think that's true for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were these auditions in person, or did you do them over Zoom? Zoom.
It was like deep in the pandemic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So did you find your cast before or after you had a crew, and how did you go about choosing who was on your crew?
Well, we had it was kind of both happening simultaneously.
Yeah,
I would say. Yeah. We had like real key members of crew, I think, once we started auditioning.
We literally shifted our schedule around so we could have our production designer too.
Yeah, we loved our production designer. But
dear friend, family.
Yes, loved the work that they did.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had Tiana, and we had our DPs, and we had obviously Darby, who was casting.
Yes,
casting.
Yeah.
And
producers. Yeah.
Producers.
Yeah, it was simultaneously, but then also because it was pandemic times, we also had to replace people like the day before. because I think we lost our sound team. Was that what it was? Yeah, we lost our sound team the day before and had to find someone immediately. We did have someone get sick on set. I don't think they had COVID, but no, they just were not well. They were not well. And Nate, my partner, who also produced this, he had to find someone immediately. Yeah. It was very funny. Jess was acting, but also producing, and which is really freaking hard to do. And so they had like their brain in like 4 different places at all times. And Nate, my partner, was also producing. He was running around doing like 8 people's jobs. And I had the luxury of just directing. And so I was kind of just focused on that. And there was stuff happening around me that I had no idea was happening until we wrapped. And then Nate was like, oh, now I'll tell you that what really happened. Yeah, what really happened. The location flooded. We had there was lost gear at one point. There's something with the rental house. There is so much stuff. I didn't know that someone had gotten sick until someone new showed up, and I was like, oh, hello. Yeah. What's it? Oh, I'm so glad you. I didn't know that someone had gotten sick. Like, I was in a bubble.
Yeah, it was really funny because Eva kept coming up to me and going, Jess, you're just supposed to be focusing on acting. And I was like, and then she would like turn and be like, okay. And then she would go be doing something and I would be like, Nate, we have to talk about it.
Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, right. There was, because we were working with some underage actors, we had to make sure they didn't go over certain hours because there's rules around that. Mm-hmm. And there was just a mistake made. Flash, I think he just came to set a couple times because he wanted
He was just so excited.
He was excited,
But we were like, you can't be here legally.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. And I didn't clock that. I was just running around with a chicken with my head cut off. And I think that was the conversation where I was like, you can't be producing.
And I was like, you're right. So sorry. Yeah. And then Eva would walk away and I would be like, it
was very funny.
Yeah. It was very funny. Nothing like horrific happened, but there were certainly many things that were like very
silly.
Funny. Yeah. Our location liaison got stuck because we were filming in like an actual old psych ward. Yeah. There's obviously the sliding doors to get in were lockable.
I think it's called a man trap.
Yeah. So it's like between the sliding door that gets you into like the breezeway, then there's another door to leave. Yeah. So there's like this man trap in between, corridor, which in case people try to escape. Yeah. And so the location liaison who had to be there, just like sitting there watching the location while we were there for all of the days, he got stuck in the man trap. And it was just like he was just standing there like looking around, and then Nate was like, are you? And he was like,
this is the person who's supposed to know how to make sure that doesn't happen.
Oh
it
my
was
God.
So funny.
And he was stuck in there for
a while,
maybe 45 minutes.
A while.
It was a long time,
and we couldn't figure out how to. And we're still shooting because we're trying to make sure that Eva's like everything's fine. Eva, like, don't worry, like we got it under control. And meanwhile, Nate and I are like,
like, that was funny. I did see that.
I did. Well, it was impossible not to see.
It was they were setting up, and I came out and I was like, and our first AD Emma was like, hey, let's not just stand here and look at him like he's an animal at the zoo. And then everyone left, and her and I were standing there, and she's like, it's really funny though. And I was like, I know it is really funny. Yeah.
God bless.
Yeah. Very, very funny.
Very.
Now,
would you be, oh, sorry, I just had one question. Would you be able to talk about some of the things that you did as an executive producer, for the film? Because some people might not know.
Okay. So what's interesting again about indie film is like executive producer is like a very loose title when it comes to indie film, because I funded this movie myself, so that was the executive part, but then like other than that, I just did like everything that needed to be done that Nate and Julie, our other producers, weren't already doing or didn't have time to do, or so I feel like, I mean, it spanned really a lot of things. Like there was food. I organized catering. like different like liaising with some gear people. Like Nate was doing a lot of that, but then obviously like some calls and emails had to be made that he didn't have time to do, so I would do things like that. Like crew list, like compiling everybody's names and pronouns and dietaries and kind of organizing like where people would be like essentially put, like especially for prep and stuff. There was a lot of liaising with our production designer, just being like, how many people do you need for this? Like, how many people do you need running to do this? A lot of like logistical stuff.
Yeah.
Making sure that making sure everyone's fed.
That was a big one.
That was a big one. And during prep too, just like coming and being like, and I will do a Tim Hortons order.
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah.
Canada. And just like things like that. And then obviously in post, like
you were gone.
I was gone, so that was a little bit stressful. It was like very interesting producing from New Zealand with like the huge time.
Yeah.
Post, I think, was the toughest time for me. Like
for me as well.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Like I thought pre-production was hard, but it was like much easier just given the fact that I was around everybody all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, post was like beyond stressful.
Yeah.
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 And just like making sure everybody's paid, making sure like all of the union insurance, everything. Yeah. Just a lot of little jobs, I would say. A lot of little jobs that then became like a long list of little jobs.
Yes. Yeah, they pile up.
They do. They do. Turns out like there's a lot of things you have to do.
Yeah. It's very
so crazy.
I haven't done now that and others. It's just like, you think about it so differently. Like, I think making film independently is kind of romanticized of like, oh yeah, we'll just get a bunch of people together and they'll be fine. But then you have to think about insurance and trucks, and food and stuff that isn't romantic at all. Yeah, it's just like brass tacks kind of stuff.
Yeah, and like the independent producing that I had done beforehand was like on a much smaller scale than this. Like we kind of went pretty big.
We went big on this.
Like this was not a low budget short film, like at all. So so it was new to me in those ways of like before it had just been like a very small group of people getting together in a place that like where one of us worked and then like we shot there and like somebody had a camera and like and that's great. Like that's easier to do. There's still a lot of hoops even then, but like for this very different.
Yeah,
very different. Many more moving parts, many more people. We had a crew of like 60 people on a short film, which is like bonkers. A lot of people.
Bonkers.
So definitely the most producing I've ever done.
Part of the reason why we had so many people though, which is worth mentioning, is like our DP and our production designer, they were all like the three of them are like the top of top. Like they work on big professional sets. They're working, the Talbot twins are working for Paramount and Netflix and all kinds of big companies. At least previous to the strike. But and because of that, they're used to having a certain number of people that they are working with. And what was great was we had a lot of folks on set who were in roles for the first time, who had never been on set, who were learning underneath people that knew what was up. Our camera team, I think actually the entire camera team were in roles that they hadn't done before on a professional set. And that was huge for them to be working with the Talbot twins and getting that like in person, in the moment instruction. Like that is invaluable to them. Same with Tiana, like they had a really large set deck team. We had a really big LX team. So it was like there's something really amazing about that. Like we say, like 60 people on set, but they weren't all folks that had done that before. So that was pretty, and I know from speaking to a lot of them, that was a pretty life-changing thing to have that.
Yeah, it was just like, it was really special for everybody. Like, it was just like, there was something really magical that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful to hear. And I think seeing kind of transitioning into film festivals and how you guys have now, you're being shown at so many festivals. And I really think all this background work that you put into it is what really got you there. But what is this process of like submitting a film for a film festival? How does that go?
Want to talk about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so there's a few different online platforms that you kind of create a profile and you upload the film. The one that we've been using mostly is Film Freeway. Shout out to Film Freeway. Yeah, every application looks a little bit different. They all cost something a little bit different. They can range from like $20 a submission to like $100 a submission. And some of them ask you questions and like get you to kind of talk a little bit more about your process making the film. Some of them is just like a click of the button and it's in. There's different tiers of festivals. You know, you've got like Sundance and Cannes and like these big ones, and then you've got kind of smaller, more independent ones. And it's really kind of, yeah, it's an interesting thing. Before we went through this festival round with ALB, I think I was really naive to what festivals meant and also the weight they carry or don't, more accurately. I think festivals are a real crapshoot. Like they can be such an amazing vehicle for networking and for promotion and for meeting other artists that think similarly to you. And then they also can be kind of superficial and not really like there are quite a few festivals that we didn't get into that I was like, that's kind of surprising.
Right.
Oh, hello. Our children are here. Yeah, I think before I did this, I was like, festivals are so important. And now I'm a little bit like, they're fun.
They're fun.
They're fun. Yeah. They can be fun. Sometimes they cannot be fun.
Yeah. I think what's just always true, and like we have this conversation constantly, like as actors, as writers, as directors, like as anything, it's like you cannot do this for that.
No.
Like you cannot do the art for outside validation, because you just, even if you get like everything that you could ever dreamed, you still won't get something that you were like, I'm sure I'm gonna get that.
Yeah.
Like you just won't. And it's not actually a reflection of your art. There's like so many factors that go into why they do or don't choose a movie for a film festival, especially shorts.
Yes.
It's like there are so many submissions in every festival for shorts, and it's like extremely competitive, and there's so many exceptional shorts out there every year because people are like so creative, and then they're able to make things on these small scales because they don't have the funding or the ability to make something on a huger scale. So it's like the shorts competitions, I would venture a guess to say that it's actually, there's way more things of quality in the shorts category than the other ones.
I was just gonna say, like, in general, the movies, I really encourage like any new or established filmmakers. I mean, established filmmakers know this, but like just you're not gonna see the best movies that exist in a theater. They're just not gonna be there, in my opinion. There are some truly like groundbreaking, life-changing things that I've seen at some of the festivals that we've played. And some of them are short, some of them are features, some of them are documentaries, but they're not going to get the big budget funding to go into, you know, Cineplex or any kind of like big movie theater. And that is such a shame, because I feel like they are the ones that really like stay with you, but also maybe that's okay. Like they reach the people that they're supposed to reach. I don't know. I want to believe that, but
yeah. And it's like, it's just remembering like that ultimately, like you just have to make it for you. You have to make something that you like.
Yeah.
Because you can't ever control or know what the other people are going to think about it. It's just like, it's a lesson that like I will learn over and over and over again for the rest of time until I die. Like it's just because it's like, every once in a while, like you want somebody else on the outside to like give you the key to something, or like open the door for you, or be like, hey, like I'm gonna completely validate this, and I'm gonna see it the same way you do, and I'm gonna know exactly the feeling that you had making it. They just won't, because they're not you, and you shouldn't be making it for them. I think it's for you. It's all for you.
It's a really I will be learning this lesson. This is a hard one for me, for sure, because inner child, if we're going to get into it, is like wanting to have that outer validation 100%. And yeah, but then at the end of the day, like, I just want to make good stuff. And like some of the shows that we love the most aren't big, like big blockbuster things. They're like the underground stuff and it's like, okay, well then our stuff can be like that too.
Exactly. And it's just we kept saying to Eva, even during the editing process, it's like we would have like Nate and I would disagree about stuff, but we would be like, at this point, like, it's yours.
Yeah.
And like you have to make what you like.
Yeah.
And you have to choose what you like and do it.
Honestly, to bring it full circle, that song, the end credits song, that was something that we like discussed, and I was like, I really feel like this is it. But then when you have like two people that you care about being like, that could be something else, I'm like, no, I think but also, oh no, and then you get yourself in a little tizzy. But at the end of the day, you just gotta do it.
Yeah.
And someone's gonna like it. It's or not, and it maybe doesn't matter, it's a hard lesson to learn. I'm actually kind of finding that this music video that I'm directing right now is for an artist who this song that we're doing the music video for is a real departure from her norm. It's very out of the style of what she does normally, and we've talked about the fact that this isn't going to be a radio track. And so the kind of pressure is off, but she still wants it to do well. This project is very much for her, which is cool. But it brings up these interesting things of like, what do we make it for? Who is it going to reach? Yeah. And I think the thing with A Little Vacation is that we both felt and I felt is I just want people to be touched by this story, because when we were writing it, we were like, this is fun. And then when we started doing research on it, we found that statistic that basically kind of illuminates the fact that so many people, like millions of people, feel when they leave a facility like a psych ward, there's an immediate drop back into reality that forces people into a very dark place and right off immediately as soon as you leave. The statistic was released from the American Medical Association a few years ago, and essentially it said that in those first 3 months after discharge, the rate of suicide rises 100 times higher than it was previous to going into the ward. And Jess and I, we were talking about it, and Jess is on the TikTok. I'm on the TikTok. But there's a huge community on there as well that are talking about the positives of a psych ward, but then also leaving and what that looks like. And like there's a huge percentage of the population that isn't necessarily feeling or seeing themselves represented in mainstream media, and that's like, I feel very, very fiery about wanting them to have this. I want them to see themselves in a light that isn't making them feel alone or facialized or anything like that. I want them to see it and be like, yeah, someone else feels that way, and I'm not just isolated in that.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, we haven't really talked about what distribution will look like after festivals, especially considering that we have a Kesha song in there. That's what makes it tough.
Yes.
Because for me, I just want to put it out for free, and I want anybody to be able to watch it whenever they want.
Yeah.
But like, we just have to deal with, unfortunately, Sony. About that. So I think like, so like that'll be an interesting departure, I think. But like, ultimately, like I just feel like if you make something that feels really true to you, and it felt like pretty true to me, and I think very, very true to you, like the final product is something that you're like extremely proud of, and you're like, this is like exactly what you wanted, which is like as it should be.
At the same time, though, the perfectionist in me is like, and being a director who still I mean, we should always be learning forever and ever on it, but like even now, like I watch it and I'm like, oh, I could have done that differently. Oh, next time I'm gonna do this, and it's not in a negative way, but just like I've learned a lot more.
No, totally. But I just mean like, if you make it and it feels true to you, like you just have to trust that the people who we made it for, which is those who it will resonate with, will resonate with it.
Correct.
They just will.
And then I don't know, we like distribution of the short we've kind of taken off the table because of the series. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess that's a good point.
Yeah, because I don't know if we how this Allie. We're in the process of developing. I mean, we have been previous to the strike. We were working on the.
We're also not WGA.
So we're not WGA, yeah, but like we're in the process of developing the series version of A Little Vacation, because one of the biggest pieces of feedback we get from everyone who watches it is all of these characters are so fascinating and so layered, and we want to know why they're there and like what their story is. And so we're in the process. We've written a pilot and we're developing that. And so the short acts as like a pitching tool for that, but it's more like we might just save the short for us.
Yeah, totally. I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah. I know we haven't touched it for a while. Yeah. We haven't touched it for a while.
Yeah, because like we obviously can't be. We can work on it, as much as we want in our own home, but we're not selling it to anything until the strike is over.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's our future plans.
Future plans. Taking over.
Yeah.
So exciting. And I think what I really liked is how you touched upon how you have to be happy with your own work. And I think that really segues into our next topic of just kind of how we all got started in the industry. Sorry about that. I have a new puppy and she's a little bit crazy. And so how we kind of all got started in the industry. And I know for me and Noah, it probably looks a little bit different from how Jess got started or how Eva got started. So how did you guys kind of get your start? And how did you, like, what's your first memory of knowing you wanted to do this? Just in general.
Sure. It's quick. I feel like I just knew from when I was really little. Like I just like when I was like 2, my mom said that one of my first full sentences was like, "I want to be there pointing at the TV." I really had the audacity. Like I really just had the audacity. I feel like I just like always was like I was a really I learned this word recently. Hyperlexic, which is like I was just really advanced when it came to like reading from a really young age. I just love stories. I was like reading constantly. I just really liked the escapism of it, I think, and like that continued. And then finally, like somehow I got sort of like scouted in a weird way, and then I booked my first audition, and then that's kind of how that happened. Yeah, and I feel like I was already kind of writing and like doing that in my own way when I was younger, and then as I got older I sort of started wanting to do that more, and then I did a little bit of writing, a little bit of directing, a little bit of producing, and then I kind of put that aside because some of those experiences earlier were kind of tough, and then I kind of waited, I felt like, until I felt really comfortable in like the relationship that I had with somebody who was like, do you want to make something? And that was, I think, like you were the perfect person to kind of like open up that door again for me. And then, that's the Cole's notes.
That's the Cole's notes.
Yeah.
Mine is a little bit more about and around and down the rabbit hole. I started as a dancer, and then I ended up doing a bachelor's degree in opera.
Weird.
And then I worked in musical theater professionally, and continue to.
My turn. To rent for you.
It's okay.
Eva was Christine in the Broadway National Tour of Phantom of the Opera.
Oh my goodness.
She had 500 performances as Christine.
Yeah. So I got off the tour July 2019, and then was in and around New York auditioning for other Broadway projects, and then the pandemic happened. I came back to BC, quarantining up in my house. We were on an acting class on Zoom. That's how I met Jess. We were in an acting class on Zoom, and I was inspired by some of my fellow classmates' work, and I started to see like images of how I would direct that. I feel like I've always been like interested in that on a certain level, but this was like for the first time I was like tangibly kind of like, oh, that's how I would frame that. This is how I would frame that. And so I grabbed like a gimbal, like a little cheap gimbal off of Amazon, and bad Amazon. I try not to order from them anymore. But I like I don't support Amazon. But I would like put my phone on it, and I would like friends would come up, and you know, this was in deep like 2020, like pandemic times, like we weren't really supposed to be seeing other people, and there's a lot of quarantining going on, and I would just like kind of film them with this gimbal on my phone, and then I, as an actor, I was booking more roles in TV movies mainly. And I met my partner, Nate, who is a collaborator with us as well. And I kind of shared with him this project, one of the projects I had been kind of playing with. And he was like, oh, do you want to direct more? And I was like, I think I do. And he's like, cool, let me produce something for you. Like, let's make some stuff. And then he kind of just started opening the door to what that looked like. And then, yeah, connecting with Jess and kind of us collaborating. And then it kind of has just snowballed from there. But I think at the core of, similarly to you, like I just love storytelling in all its forms and the power it has, and the way in which you can connect with an audience. Like in live theater, the precious part of that is feeling and seeing reactions from an audience in real time, and we don't get the same thing with film, but there's something that happens when you like really hit a chord on a set where you can just feel it. There's something like time stops. It was really interesting. There's a movie that we just did together that Jess was first AD and producing, and I was producing. Ironically, actually, this ties in because the young man who played Boy with Tail in A Little Vacation, he is now wanting to direct more, and so we supported him in making his first short film for a competition that he just won. He just won Best First Time Director, and the lead actor Mark Joseph also won Best Performance out of like a whole bunch of professional established actors. You know, Yuvraj is 15, Mark Joseph is 17. An incredible experience, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, Yuvraj's younger sister Rahani was on set, and she was standing by the monitor, and she said she was watching this shot, and she was like, "It's so much more beautiful than real life. It's so much more beautiful to look at than real life."
And the cinematographer was like,
"Oh, thank you so much." But I kind of feel like there's a magic in that, you know, and it's the same as the theater in a certain way. There's a magic in that kind of like time stands still, and we're seeing life and the story in a way that feels much more beautiful and much more nuanced than real life. I just kind of like that kind of feeling. Like I say this to Jess all the time. Like when I get images in my head or a story that really like resonates with me, it starts to feel like it's eating me alive. Like I have to get it out. It's like, it's hard to describe, but I get really like about it. Words aren't easy for that. Yeah.
I totally get what
you guys probably understand that. Like I feel like anybody who makes something like they understand that. Yeah.
Because I know.
How did you guys like get started out? I kind of know about you, but no.
Yeah.
Oh, I could speak. Yeah. I mean, when I was in like grade 2, I was in a drama class, and I really did not like acting at all. But my teacher gave me the opportunity to like write like a short skit for like my group and direct it, and I realized that I really enjoyed that. And I mean, I was in grade, but I mean, it was in French, and it was really simple. It was like just the dialogue, pretty much. Yeah. But I thought I wanted to be an author for like half of elementary school, but then I started making like music videos with my friends, and I realized that I liked telling them like, you know, what to do, and then like seeing it after. And so I took a film elective in high school, and I really loved it. I met one of my best friends in that class, like for now, and he's in all of our projects that I still do. And then I studied film after that for 2 years and in CEGEP, and then 1 year in university. And I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I love creating, writing, directing, anything, editing. I'm editing a project right now. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And what I really like is me and Noah were really able to kind of like, we met on Twitter and like bonded because we're both in film. And I think being a woman in film too is a very interesting kind of pathway right now. And I know mine all started because I watched Pretty Little Liars when I was younger. And I loved it. And I always found myself writing like little fanfics. I was in like sixth grade and I'd be writing like the endings I wanted to see. And I was like, I want to do this for a living eventually. And I almost went in different pathways, but I've always been led back here. And what I really like about the podcast is I'm having the ability to tell people's stories that aren't necessarily mine, but I get to hear like all of your stories and I get to share them. So it's so great connecting with the talent and hearing their side of it, especially as someone who's still learning all of this.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we're
all still learning.
All still learning. Yeah, and like it's so funny. You were talking about women in film. This is my this is a gift from my friend Emma, who's also a writer and director. This is a bunch of female directors on a mug.
Oh, I love that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's my favorite. Yeah, it's interesting. I've been really protected, I feel like, with working with Nate, who is always supporting me and amping me up. But on this recent project, I am taking more of a driver's seat position as producer and director. And it's a really interesting thing seeing how vendors' locations, I hate to generalize, but like, I am feeling like when I am talking to someone who is male presenting and I'm asking for something as a woman who is still kind of, emerging, starting in her career as a director, I get a lot of gaslighting and a lot of mansplaining and a lot of like saying no. And having a direct comparison in how Nate has discussions with vendors, I know it's different. I know it's different. And that is I like I said, like I feel like I've been protected because I've surrounded myself with people who are endlessly supportive no matter what their gender representation. But yeah, now kind of like being a little bit more in the driver's seat, I'm like, oh wow, this is real. Like this, we're talking about gender. Hello, puppy. We're talking about gender equality and like within our industry, and we've got a long way to go. And it's a systemic thing of like, I was just talking to our production designer on this about this, where it's like, not only is it that male presenting folks often have an idea of what women are capable of doing within film, but also femme presenting folks maybe have put limitations upon themselves because of the structure that's in place that tells them that they can't.
Yeah. I think that's fully what happened with Boy Girl for me. Like I just kind of got eaten alive by men.
Right.
Like it was just like I had a really clear thing, and like my cinematographer was a woman, and we had such a great time in prep and shooting it. And then after and post, like it was just so many men around me who were like very insecure in their own artistry and very insecure in their own what they wanted to do, and they wanted to be what I do what I had done already, and like it was just I feel like there's just so much.
It's all egos, and it's it sounds simple to just like be like don't get up in your ego about this, but it's everyone's just like trying to prove that they are their best artist self, and sometimes the strongest move is saying I'm not sure, I don't know, let me relate to someone else to fill in the blanks here. And like even the most established director or artist needs to do that all the time.
And sometimes, like, I think in that situation for me, too, is like I was saying I don't know a lot, and other people were taking advantage of me saying I don't know.
Right.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's just like, you have to be so careful about who you surround yourself with, which is a good lesson for everybody.
Yeah.
No, definitely. And I mean, one thing that I feel like a lot of our listeners look to for advice is how to get on a set. Do you have any recommendations for groups or programs or internships to look for, just how to get that experience?
I honestly honestly think you just have to do it. Like, I feel like there's a million groups and a million schools and a million classes that you can do, but ultimately, like, there are in every city. I mean, here we have like things like Vancouver Actors Guide or stuff like that, but like Facebook groups, yeah. But it's like, just look around for postings about people looking for crews, looking for PAs, looking for volunteers, and just go, because like you'll never learn as much. As just being there. Yeah. And just like connecting with people who know a little bit more than you or know different things than you. Yeah. And just actually the practice of doing it. This is true for, I think, any creative thing at all, is you just have to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think Jess and I are both in a privileged position because we both are actors. Yes. Being on set and just watching. Like, I know myself, I'm a sponge. Like, I'm constantly watching everyone and listening to everything. Yeah. Even when I shouldn't be. And, you know, you kind of just like pick up on, we because we were on set for other reasons, like, pick up on what works and what doesn't that way. But yeah, like, Facebook groups are your friend. Like, any kind of indie production Facebook group in your area, like, they will exist, and people are always looking for a favor. Yeah. You know, someone to just be an extra pair of hands. And that's the way. Yeah. Go to film competitions in your area, like film screenings, and like, just talk to people. Yeah. And be like, I'm interested in learning about X, Y, and Z. Like, do you know somebody who like, and people are really generous in those types of communities too. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like people, because those people were you like a year ago, and they're just they want to help. I don't I have been kind of blown away by the communities created at Women's Film Festival specifically. We just played at Cascadia International Women's Festival. I'm going to shout them out because it was such an amazing experience. They're in Bellingham, so West Coast, but the community that Cheryl, the head of the festival, creates is just like unmatched. Like, I have never seen a group of people that are wanting to lift each other up so much. And the discussions they have around each film and the films that they bring in. So I would like, there are film festivals everywhere. So looking up like what's happening in your area and just going, and if there happens to be a women's film festival, which I know in New York there are quite a few, not sure about New Jersey, but like, and Montreal, obviously, there's tons of stuff going on. Just like, going and just asking a question and saying like, hey, on your next film, like, if you need a PA or you know, someone to help out with crafty, like, here's my name and number, and I'm willing to do it for free. There's also like something that's so amazing about indie productions is so many people are willing to donate their time, and there's like an understanding that that's the way that some of this stuff gets made. Most of this stuff gets made. And so like, you know, it's a hard balance to strike where it's like, okay, I have to put food on the table, but I also want to get these hours in to really understand what I want to do. And you kind of have to, you know, have that trade-off and make those choices. But
yeah. No, definitely. I feel like though that's such great advice, especially because it's such a daunting experience. But my last question for all of you is, who has been your biggest inspiration throughout this journey?
Jess.
Oh, yeah, that's really nice. True for you to say.
Yeah, 100%. They
didn't know that.
They are so bold in their decision making. They are so passionate and dedicated to not only their craft, but also like their exploration of themselves, and that in turn like informed how rich and layered their art can be. And so I'm constantly like, you know, in moments when I feel down on myself, not only are they there lifting me up, but they're also leading an example of like a really unfiltered and blunt way of existing that I kind of strive for.
Bless you. So nice.
True.
Yeah, I mean, the first person that came to mind for me in terms of inspiration is like, I just am so obsessed with like everything that Michaela Cole does. Like, she just cannot do wrong.
We are Michaela Cole super fans in this household.
I'm obsessed with her. It's somewhere. Yeah. I just
God.
could not love her more. I love everything that she does. I think
true.
She's so fascinating. Yeah, I'm obsessed with her. But I will say, like, also like watching Eva do all of the directing. No, I know, but watching Eva do all this directing stuff, it's like I was kind of burned before, and I think it's like been really important for me to see like that. No, like it can be done, and like you can succeed, and like you can have your visions realized, and like people will support you, and it won't be bad.
Yeah,
so I think, like that's been really important for me to see too.
I'm not jaded yet.
Yeah.
I've still got like the rose-colored glasses on.
No, but you've also had like some doses of reality. Like 100%. It's not like it's gone off completely without a hitch for you. But I think, yeah, it's been really nice for me to like kind of see through you, like, because I think one of the first conversations we had about a little vacation was you going, do you want to direct it? And I was like, no. And at that time, that was really true for me because I just had really horrible experiences.
Right.
But yeah, like seeing you and getting to like support you and like doing these things that you really wanted to do, I was like, oh no, like that is achievable. I was just surrounding with we're not helpful to me.
Right. Yeah. It's really like I'm a big believer in community. Like you can't do this stuff alone, and it really does. Like the people that you surround yourself with, the energy that you bring into a room, the energy that those people are bringing to the room, it really is make or break. Like you have to be so picky about that. And I think if you do get the right folks in the right place, you can pretty much do anything. Yeah, it just that is super important.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Noah? Do you have any inspirations?
I mean, my parents, because like they inspire me all the time. They also supported me when all my friends were like doing science and stuff, and because it was like a backup plan in case anything went wrong. But my parents just told me to go for what I wanted to do. So they inspire me. And of course all my friends that I work with all the time, and like I see their projects and get to support them, and then they support me and things like that. What about you, Alison?
Yeah, I have to say definitely my parents, because the same thing, like when I wanted to do this, they said, go do it. They weren't like, try something else.
Please.
Yeah.
The best. She's so kind and understanding. And then I do have to say Jess and Eva, because whenever I feel like I am like, I don't know if I can make something, I look at a little vacation and I think of like how it started and how you guys built it up. And Eva, it was so great to get to know you today, but Jess said something in my first interview with them. They said, if you just need someone in your corner, and I'm in your corner, Alison. And that has stuck with me, and it makes me really emotional because it was a time when I was so lonely, and that meant the world to me. And then I do have to say, just the whole cast of One of Us Is Lying was phenomenal. And obviously Jess knows I really look up to Marianne. So just like those people, and even the writers, everyone who's really helped out with this podcast and has helped me get my voice out there, I just look up to them so much. And I think it's phenomenal to have so many people in this industry who are willing to help, because it seems like it's such a blocked off industry, but it's really not. You find those people and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's just the right people for sure.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your new job, you legend.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited. It's a podcast production company where I will be helping with teenage girls and non-binary teens get their voice out in the media.
Oh,
gosh,
that's amazing.
I'm very excited. Yeah, it just started up. I'm doing like all my stuff for it today. So I'm going to be helping them come up with podcasts and conduct interviews and all of that great stuff.
Wow, that's amazing. That is so cool.
Congrats. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you. Congratulations on everything you guys have achieved with A Little Vacation, then even outside of that. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for making it work with our full schedule. Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.